Maestro Elim Chan, welcome to Cultural Attaché.
Hello, nice to meet you, Craig.
You have a very impressive July schedule coming up. You are going to be playing at the Hollywood Bowl on July 9th, and 10 days later, you will be conducting the opening night of the BBC Proms at Royal Albert Hall. Could the young girl who responded so passionately to the image of Mickey Mouse conducting in Fantasia have ever imagined this for herself?
Absolutely not. Um, Even though, as a young girl, I think I've, quite like crazy imagination and of course I have dreams. Um, but this kind of dream, um, in Hollywood Bowl, it's already very cool. And to actually, I think I'm gonna start the classical season, like the series. Um, And then the proms is basically like a unicorn. It's like this sort of like, okay, to conduct in the proms, check. First night? Ooh, and then to really think someone like me, like you said, like a little girl. I mean, I'm kind of petite and being Asian, yeah, and to be on the first night for like one of the biggest, basically, I think the biggest summer festival in the UK and famous one in the world. Yeah. It's, yeah, more than a dream come true, I would say.
Now you said conducting at the proms check, but conducting opening night. What was your first experience conducting the proms, and how do you think this one will be different conducting the opening of the proms?
So the first time that I conducted in the proms, I think that was like before COVID, I think 19. And it was already like, an amazing experience because I mean the Royal Albert Hall, it's in itself, it's very different concert hall than the others. It's like, you really feel that you're sort of like a stadium, right? And then you have all these like audience standing at your feet and you can literally touch them or they can touch you, the feeling. And this really like the feeling of how the audience cheer for you and they really, are so involved. And that's really quite something I never like experienced anywhere else. And so that was already like such a huge honor, and I was like, wow. And then and to get to come back last summer also was like, it confirms that again, you really feel like I felt like a rock star. You walked on stage and actually people were like, "What?" Like this thing. No one is there to be like, oh, be like very like behaved, that kind of thing. But people really just like, you feel this raw a reaction. Um, and then to like start, I mean, I can only imagine um how would it feel. And then to know that the concert, I think it was like one of the first ones to be sold out. Like the tickets were gone the moment it went out there. So just, I don't know. I'm gonna be just stay open and stay just like, let this just like, be a surprise.
Well, maybe people respond like rock stars, like a rock star is taken to the stage at the BBC Proms because Royal Albert Hall, is mentioned famously in a Beatles song because in A Day in the Life, they mention Royal Albert Hall. So even people who don't attend classical music concerts,
Mm.
Royal Albert Hall.
Here you go. Yeah.
Now for that concert, you're going to be conducting the world premiere of Ben Nabuto's Hallelujah Sim. What excites you most about Nabuto as a composer in general and about this work in particular?
Hmm. So I think it also, well, it was really interesting because, of course, there's this new commission and it's like a big thing for the proms to feature like, new pieces um, and we looked at a few composers, but Ben really stood out because, I mean, I listened to a few of his pieces and choir voices has been like a thing, he really writes really good for voices. And I grew up in choir. I've sung like throughout like, children's choir, women's choir, you know. So to hear how exciting that he can make parts for voices, that already I was like, oh, that checked like a huge, like my light bulb went on. And then he mixes in this electronic um part of it, which of course makes it very interesting. And of course, it's one thing that, this we're in a time that we think a lot about AI, think about our lives, how we react with technology. So to put these, to put voices, which is one of the most human instruments, yeah, it's like basically we are making the sound. And then there's a huge orchestra, me, and to have him, doing the live electronics on stage. So it's really quite a cool concept. And then the fact that the way he writes, it's really there's this sort of video game element to it, and then this is also in this piece. And I love video games myself. Um, so there's this element that also with jazz. So that he has like he comes in with a lot of backgrounds. It's like a pot, melting pot for a lot of elements. So I'm just like so curious. So yeah, I mean, actually at this point I still haven't gotten the music. So, but I've seen like we have talked about it and he showed me parts of it, like what he's working on and then trying to figure it out. And I told him like, can we let go of the click track? Because click track means like then you have this thing going on in the ear and everyone has to just like, oh my God. And I'm like, let's not do that. Let's just do everything in real time, and then I think that's really make it exciting. So
Now, we often hear about how conductors think about music.
mhm.
What do you think is unique about the way you hear music, whether it happens while you're reading a score or whether you're actually conducting an orchestra?
I think that's always a very interesting uh, question. And I find conducting is so cool because in the sense that, I mean, I have like this concept in my head, right? Like this story. Of course, this story is a narrative or like some sort of course, soundscape that the moment I start opening a score, it starts. I can hear it. I mean, I can play it on the piano and then it sort of built this world that I'm hearing of vision now. And then, of course, constantly when I'm on stage with the orchestra, I have to sort of compare, what I'm hearing with this vision in my head, and then have to like bring it closer. And sometimes actually what I'm hearing is nicer than what I thought of. So I have to also like do this constant so it's like a constant synergy of both worlds. And then so it's in a way like a tango, right? I give and take one step, two step. And then but at the same time, of course, I'm the conductor and I want to mold it in the end that we arrive at the vision that it's like we're all happy about. Um, but also I think as a conductor is so cool in the sense I always think it's like I'm a time traveler because in the moment I'm hearing something. So it's and then I have to be staying in the moment, right? I'm fixing the now and hearing what happened just now, that's the past, that affects the now, and then to still keep an eye on the future. So it's really a cool thing, right? Like you're basically, I'm like sort of constantly monitoring the three time zones in a way.
All simultaneously while a performance is taking place.
Absolutely.
So have you ever been in a situation where you hear a piece of music radically differently than a particular orchestra has ever heard it or wants to hear it?
I'm not sure if I'm understanding this right. So
Well,
I'm,
you've talked about how,
mm,
how you imagine it, how you hear it in your mind.
mhm.
Um, and then you say it's sort of a give and take when you're on the podium, but there is a notoriously short rehearsal process. Have you ever
Oh,
I assume that every conductor comes in sometimes with ideas that an orchestra goes, "Oh, I'm not so sure about that," or that's not
absolutely.
the way I've
Mhm.
always thought about it. How do you reconcile that tango as you've discussed it?
I think that is when really like, of course, the ideal way is like what I said, right? Like sort of tango, it takes two to tango. And I always remember we're people. Yeah. And and that makes it so interesting and so frustrating. And I have to find ways as the conductor, and this is something I, read about Bernstein. Like one of his greatest quotes are something like, you have to, I don't know, like do whatever you can to get the music work. You can like cheer them up. You need to if you need to like be like, I don't want to say asshole, but someone needs to put the foot down. If you need to put the foot down, put the foot down. And maybe beg, maybe like, to demand or to comfort them to lure them do anything and this is something in the end, I want to find a way to get everyone on the same page, or, and that is the trick of this. The psychology is very important. But in the end, I want to have everyone agree that, can we fix the music? It's not about my ego or yours. Yeah.
I interviewed conductor Simone Young 4 years ago, and she told me that everything comes from the written page. She said, I spend hours and hours studying scores, but also studying manuscripts, references. I want to
Mm.
get as much info about the thought process and the work process. Do you think there can be a definitive understanding of a composer's thought process, or will it always be open to interpretation?
I think the second. I mean, I also do the same. I mean, I want to, of course, really put myself back in the time, in the context, right? You take in as much, and this is really, I feel like this investigating work, basically, right? There's like crime scene, something happened. Okay, what really happened? And you can collect, evidence. You can talk to people who think they saw the thing happen, but even each perspective is different. And then after then sort of like, okay, then collecting all these things, and then I try to build, an interpretation of what exactly happened because no one actually really know. Um, and I think this is so cool. And that's the thing about, I think the beauty of it, that there's not really one right way. We're all interpreters in that sense.
But there are sometimes very definitively wrong ways.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and that's when, like, if you didn't kill that person, I mean, come on, I can't say that you did, right? Then, so no, I mean, of course, I always try to, in that sense, like to serve the score, to try to understand these dots and like these little squiggles, and it's like, is it really a dot or actually it's a tenuto, or like, no, it looks like this, and then no, I think it's just the ink. And then you add all these coffee head prints on it, and and then you're like, oh, I can't even see that note anymore. It's scratched out anymore, So, but we try to go as close to the truth.
All right, so I ask you these questions because at the same concert at the Proms, you're going to be playing probably one of the top five best known compositions in the history of the world with Beethoven's Fifth.
Yes.
With a work so familiar to audiences and so familiar to the musicians, how do you think your approach to it might be the only one that you, as an individual human being, could have imagined?
Well, there's only one Elim, right? So in that sense, it will be my interpretation of it. And one thing really, I will say, especially after COVID, and during COVID, I think we all have spent a lot of time with ourselves and thinking like what is important, what is not. So one thing that I came out from this whole crazy time, and we're still in some crazy times, um, is that I really want to give, if I'm continuing to do music, um, and I really want to just give this life experience to everyone who is there. That makes it, like why you need to be there to experience that, because it only happens once. That with all the people in that combination, with me on stage, that combination, yeah. And so I just, I don't know, I'm like allergic to autopilot mode. For myself too, I just catch myself. If I think I know something, I stop. Like, no, 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 no. Do I really know this? Or, and then when I hear orchestras start to play, like, yeah, exactly, like Beethoven 5, we all think we know. It's so familiar. And the audience thinks they know too, they will come in probably thinking, oh, what would Elim do? Because I think, it just sound like this or whatever. I don't know. I mean, you think you actually know how I'm gonna do it? I'm gonna surprise you. Like I always try to just, stop this to prevent people from going into with this mindset, and really just do it in that moment. How do you feel? And I think in this moment, the world is so messed up. There's so many crazy things happening. I mean, wars are happening everywhere, and we get to like make music in like, and to celebrate first of the Proms, to do Beethoven 5 and the beginning of Beethoven 5. I mean, I think this is like a moment to really express something. I don't know, we're all so frustrated about whatever you're frustrated with. And that whole first movement is literally that. So, of course, then we can go into this whole thing. Oh, like it is an upbeat, like what kind of like how to, of course, there's always there, all there. But then I think what makes it, what fuels it to become, a Beethoven 5 that is fresh and, you know, happening now is that we really make it together and really not think about a single moment that you think
So, in other words, in troubled times, that opening movement could be even angrier, perhaps, because that's a reflection of the time we live in.
Absolutely. And also that makes it, because if this is a journey from darkness to light, right? I think we're in quite crazy dark times. And the light, I think we are all yearning to really for some, I don't know, like I think we need a lot of light in the world everywhere, right?
How often do you surprise yourself in the middle of a concert?
A lot. I try. And and I love actually when mistakes happen because that shocks everyone. It's like and that's just like and I love those very raw like minute or two when everyone is like, wait, what? Oh no, and everyone's awareness is insane, right? I love these waking up moments.
Now, you said you love when mistakes happen. That sounds
Mhm.
like a jazz musician, not a classical musician, because a jazz musician moves past the mistakes and who knows where it leads them because they have
Mhm.
improvisational opportunities.
Yeah.
And I bring that up because I was very surprised to see a list of the five most important works for you. And of course, there was the Enigma variations. There was the Beethoven's Overture, the Egmont Overture. But I was very surprised to see Bill Evans on your list.
Well, that's also explains why, right?
Absolutely. But what inspires you most about Bill Evans? And do you see a way in which the way Bill Evans created and performed music that inspires the way you create and perform music?
I think it's really the spirit of like this, like what you just said. I think it really is, you take a tune and you really let it sort of take you. And there's not really a set way. And that's so beautiful. And the way I mean, he's such an immense pianist and musician. And there's not never the same, right? It happens. And this is something I really want to take into well, Beethoven 5 or a Clara Schumann or, Handel, Bruckner. When you hear this, you're like, oh, it needs to be this. Who said that? I mean, the fact that they got me to do this is already like, oh my God, wild card. Um, and this is when I'm like, I'm gonna just take this opportunity and just really, bring in that spirit. And it's like I think we can learn so much from each from all the other genres. And I think this is what maybe sometimes get classical music a bit boring and people are like, "Ugh, stuffy. You can't even clap when you hear something great." I love when people actually like, I remember, some audiences, maybe it's the first time, and then they just sort of like, wow, or they like react in some crazy ways. And I love it. And actually, the orchestra also loves it because it's like, oh my God, people react. And I'm like, please clap. If you like it, clap. If you don't like it, boo. It's also fine. So it's just like, there's like interaction. This is what I really want, especially now.
Well, and if anybody looks at the track record of what you've conducted over the years, you were equally comfortable conducting Baroque music and, 21st century music. And I think that's really great because if we don't run the gamut, the whole breadth of the music that's been written, then I think it becomes fossilized.
Yes. I mean, and I do think it's a mere responsibility as a conductor or as an artist to really also just commit to what is happening now, what is being written now. And there's so many things out there, so many different kinds of music being, like made right now. And if I find ones, the people, the composers that I'm really just like interested in, I'm gonna like, champion them. And and in that sense, if that person is a woman, greater, but still it's just needs people need to listen to good music and different music, you know. So and we are also in the time that I think much more ready than before to hear different things. So yeah,
Well, I feel
I'm
very lucky being based in Los Angeles because I have probably, at least in this country, if not perhaps in the world, the orchestra most open to performing new work.
yes. There you go. The LA Phil is basically, I think they're just they're so cool in that sense. They're like really like a lab, no? I mean the Green Umbrella series, it's just they just put can be so wonk it's like completely like bonkers. But then you get the chance to hear like, wow, like these things exist out there. And then to, the greatest, like you can hear Mahler, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, but we only get to hear Gustavo Dudamel for a small, short period of time left. It feels like the clock is ticking for us.
Mm, but he's gonna come back. He's like he'll stay a great friend, no?
Of
And that's
course, so
nice.
as Esapeka comes back, as Zubin Mehta comes back.
Yes.
Um, so if the LA Philharmonic came to you and said, "Would you like to be the next music director?" What would you what do you think would be the first thing that you would think? And that's not to say that I know that they have or haven't already, by the way.
Uh-huh. I think this will be like another moment, like, that's another unicorn that just like because I definitely will be like, no way. And then I'll start doing a happy dance. I will probably be like, unbelievable. No, no, no. And I'm like, you know what? If that happens, thank you. And let's get to work. Because if this happens, I do think that we're in a time that I think the world is definitely more ready than before for, things like this. And of course, I want to be ready as possible. And if this comes to me, of course, it's like you said, they are I think one of the most adventurous, curious orchestras, institutions in the world. They take chances, they take risk, and and they can afford to do it. So yeah, let's see.
I would love to see that happen because I think it's time for Los Angeles to have a woman conductor. I've been thinking
Well,
I've been thinking that for as soon as it was mentioned that Dudamel was leaving, I thought LA's got to step up. It's 2024 already. It's time to make a bold move. And the nice thing is this orchestra has repeatedly made bold moves, and frankly, this shouldn't even be looked at as a bold move. This should be looked at as the right move, if you ask me.
and again, I think it's time, no?
It is. Now let's talk a little bit about time before we run out of it.
Yes.
At the Hollywood Bowl, you will be revisiting Rimsky-Korsakov's Scheherazade.
Hmm.
10 years ago, you won the Donatella Flick conducting competition by conducting that piece. How has your relationship to this particular composition evolved in that 10-year period?
So you can definitely, imagine the piece has a very special place in my heart, as cheesy as it is, but it's the piece that landed me, sort of my career. It's like jump started. And talking about the piece itself, right? I mean, it's literally about a woman having to stand up for herself every night, telling stories. And if she doesn't tell a good story, she gets killed. And so the piece is like the gist of it, right? And funny enough, 10 years ago, I was like the first woman and to win the competition in London. And now 10 years later, I think I'm still the only and first woman to have done that. And I'm like, hey, girls, where are you guys? Like, I don't want to keep doing being the first, but and this really, I think that the whole 10 years, and I've done this piece again and again, and I really feel very like identify myself with Hasharazad because and each time I do the piece, I get more brave. I get more compelling. Like I'm more convinced that, we really need to be strong and like you said, be bold to tell this. And of course, then my interpretation is like a stew, no? Slow cook, it takes more flavor, and then I see more things. And every time I go back to, I still see something new, and I want to try something new. So I can tell the story in different, different ways. Like you take a walk in the park, even though you have the familiar path, every day you go for you see different things, different weather, different mood, So I really love the fact that this piece lends itself for that. And different concertmaster, I mean, it's a piece within a huge part for solo. And each concertmaster is different. And also over the time, 10 years, I'm so happy that I start to see women concertmasters, I don't even want to say concert mistress, it sounds very bad. Women concertmasters who do this part. And I was like, because usually it's been also, I mean, male concertmasters also play wonderful, they're masterful. But then when I see a woman and they take this part on, there's an extra sort of fire, like a fighting spirit, and I love it. And so it's really a piece that I don't know, I love, and it became sort of the story of myself as well.
Do you know going into a concert like the one at the Bowl, who your concert master is going to be?
I think this one, yes, I think it's going to be Nathan, who I think is going to be the new concertmaster of Boston Symphony. So it will be another farewell, but I think he will also like, I'm gonna do this, like,
Because we do have a fabulous female violinist as well, as you
Mm,
probably know, who is extraordinary.
yes. Next time.
Next time, next time. Um, Rimsky-Korsakov is quoted as having said, "I had no idea the historical evolution of the civilized world's music and had not realized that all modern music owes everything to Bach." Do you agree that all modern music, even today, over 100 years after Rimsky-Korsakov, owes everything to Bach?
Wow, what a statement, though. I think a lot of it, yes. I mean, and I always believe that we all need to actually understand what happened in the past, especially Bach as such a master, in order to write. First of all, you need to really understand what the tradition or what came before, and then you can decide to keep it or break it. And I think that in this case, yes. I mean, Bach, of course, after that, there's so basically all the greats follow Bach. If you look back, Brahms, I mean, Beethoven, and how, like, just everyone, basically. The vein comes from there. So,
Yeah, and I think if you listen to The Rite of Spring, as daring and bold as that piece was, you can absolutely make a through line back to Bach.
absolutely. Everything, I think. So even like, for example, the Unsuk Chin that I'm gonna do also on the program at the ball. First of all, the piece itself, I mean, of course it pays a lot of homage to Beethoven. I mean, and who is Beethoven looking back on? Bach. And all these counterpoints. I mean, who does counterpoints better than Bach? And it again, this. So yes.
So we started the conversation by my asking you if you could have imagined, in one 10-day period, opening the classical season at the Hollywood Bowl and then opening the BBC Proms in London. You know, that seems, like a dream come true, but everybody has to have new dreams as well. What dreams do you have beyond what this summer is going to offer you?
Well, I'm very curious. Of course, like what we have discussed briefly. I mean, of course, other than Los Angeles, there are other orchestras that are also looking. So that will be something, if you ask me about my dream is to find my orchestra, a place where we can do some crazy things and, grow together, fly together. Um, so yes, that is a big dream. And another dream of mine actually will come true is that I finally can do some opera. And that's something is like my, I'm like connecting back to my roots in a way because I came from voice choirs and So, and I love theater, I love drama. So what's better than actually opera to have like all these elements coming together? And I haven't actually gotten the chance to do like one that from the scratch, to really see the singers, work with them and then see how the stage come together. We're talking about something like 2 month process, you know. So I'm gonna do this, and this is like in 2 years. So very important for myself, like for like a baby project, so I can say if I like this or not. Um, and of course, there are like crazy dreams, like to conduct like, the Berlin Philharmonic, Vienna Philharmonic, all this stuff. But I don't know. I feel like, sometimes I put a dream and then like things like first night of the proms come in. You're like, I haven't even thought about that. So in a way, I'm like, just tell life, come on, surprise me. But I'm gonna keep, giving my vibe, and keep working, and then just see what can be, you know, what can be done.